Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the ride. So we've had a very interesting weekend of games, and I have a very good show for you tonight. I have some wonderful guests that are going to join me, and we're going to talk about everything that occurred. We're going to fill you in on what's getting ready to take place in week number 5. And we're also going to have something brand new tonight, which we're going to give some awards to some of the best players from week number 4. So if you would, everybody who is going to tune in or those that will watch this on record, make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Do that early and often. This is a very brand new platform for me. And, we're just getting started, looking to do some really big things. So first thing I want to do, I want to get into some of the games from the weekend. And so the first one I want to start with, I want to talk about this game that took place down there in Daytona. And this game was on HBCU Go, and it was a roller coaster ride. This thing was full of action. So Clark Atlanta was able to go down to Daytona and pull off a huge upset, winning 38-37 over Bethune-Cookman. Now, as you can see, David Wright for Clark Atlanta, their quarterback, he had a tremendous day. He threw for 374 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Cam Ransom, he was not to be outdone himself by Bethune-Cookman. As you can see, his stat line was pretty stout itself. He had a lot of action in the run game as well as throwing. But some of the things that happened in this game is that the Wildcats, they got off to a 31-7 lead in the first half. And once things kind of settled in for Clark Atlanta, they started to take a lot of chances. And if you have not seen Clark Atlanta, they have an air raid offense, and their air raid offense at their level of football in the SIAC is pretty potent. And it was on display, and they caused a lot of problems for Bethune-Cookman on defense. So once it was 31-7, as you can see, there was a 98 and a 99-yard scoring drive. Now, that's a shout out to Bethune-Cookman's punter because he buried the Panthers inside their own 10-yard line 3 times in the second half. But David Wright led these guys down the field twice on 98 and 99-yard scoring drives, and that cut the lead to 34-28. Once it got to about 34-28, that's when you saw the Wildcats start to settle down and buckle in on defense. But then some things happened, some key things happened. The Wildcats were stopped on downs in the fourth quarter. And then also when it appeared that they were going to pull the game out on the final drive that the Panthers had the ball, there was a crucial unsportsmanlike conduct penalty by Johnny Harris where he was called for taunting. And that gave Clark Atlanta just the amount of yards that they needed to do this.
It is mad yards. Ball is down. Kick is up. Oh, my! Clark with the field goal. Final 38-37. Panthers with the upset. Unbelievable finish.
So that was Leonardo Cabrera with a walk-off 55-yard field goal. Yeah, you saw it. 55-yard field goal to walk off Clark Atlanta with a stunner, 38-37 down in Daytona. Now, for Bethune-Cookman, this was a game that a lot of people had circled for them to win. Just about everybody, probably except for Clark Atlanta supporters. And the fact that this happened to Bethune-Cookman, this is something that could be a huge setback to the confidence that they were building in their program. Now, it remains to be seen whether they'll be able to bounce back or not. And they'll have a chance to do that because they open SWAC play next week, back at home, no less, as the Alabama State Hornets come down there. So big shout out to Clark Atlanta for pulling this game out and coming back from a huge deficit. All right, the next one, shout out to Valley. Shout out to Valley. Valley, this is the end of their non-conference slate. And the thing, if you're a Valley fan, that has to be a little bit deflating for you is the fact that not just you lost this game 66-0, and not just that you gave up 455 yards rushing and you had -7 rushings yourselves, but it's the fact that you played 4 FCS teams in the non-conference. Now, they were very competitive against Lamar, but the other ones against Murray State, this one against Nichols, and the one against Tennessee State, not so much. And so those are the things that would give you a lot of concern if you're a Mississippi Valley State Delta Devil fan moving ahead, to think that you will have any possibility of really getting anything done this year. Now, you do get back at home next week for your home opener. You've been waiting a long time. A lot of people have been looking for this for a while to see how you guys would be on your new field. You get your new turf, you get your new scoreboard, you debut all of that next week. And that is something that we are looking forward to seeing for you, Valley. Other than that, just this is the type of performance that would not give me any kind of confidence to think that they could even win a game this year. Now, things can happen. Kendrick Wade, he can get these guys together when they enter SWAC play and they can develop something and maybe catch somebody one day on playing flat. But this was a game that they were thoroughly dominated from start to finish, was never really in it. Valley, I know we say a lot of jokes about you guys, but honestly, I hope you guys get it together. I hope you guys can do something, give your fans, give your supporters, give your alums some kind of hope, man, not just for this year, but also into the future. Now, also it took place, UAPB, they hosted a top 10 FCS team in Central Arkansas. Now, Central Arkansas, they came into this thing as a huge favorite, and there was no surprise that they took care of business. You can see that they ran it up. 566 total yards, but 309 yards rushing. They pretty much had their way with the Lions in this matchup. And Hagens, shout out to Hagens, their quarterback. He did put up a few numbers. He threw for a couple TDs. But this was not a game that UAPB was expected to compete in. And because they weren't expected to compete in, they pretty much did what we all expected, which was they came in, they played, they tried, but now the non-conference is over and they're going to get ready and roll in to taking on a bye week, which is much needed. And then they'll get into the SWAC part of their schedule. All right. Now I got to talk about my team. And because I have to talk about my team, I want to be very transparent. Now, as an Alabama A&M fan, an alum, and a supporter, I know that a lot of our alums, they're not happy. And as a matter of fact, they have not been happy for quite a while. They haven't been happy because, we've had this roller coaster of quarterbacks. We've had, this translation of with Maynard not really understanding what the direction of our program is going to be. And last night, this was another one of these situations where we started with Quad Brown as our quarterback, and then we pulled him out. And then we saw Avion Smith. And then you get it. Austin P, a lot of people, they looked and they said, well, these guys, they were 0-3 coming in. But one thing about their 0-3 record that was coming in was I knew that they played Louisville, and Louisville hammered them. And also they played a nationally ranked Central Arkansas, and also they played a nationally ranked Southern Illinois. Now, I did not expect that we would win this game in the least bit, but I expected that we would at least come out and compete, and we did not compete at all. As a matter of fact, we were taken to the woodshed pretty early, and it gotten to the point where a lot of our fans that had made the trip, some of them, they left early, and that's unfortunate to see. And one of the things that we thought we were going to get, we thought we were going to see some levels of excitement in this game that would give you some potential to feel like next week in the SWAC opener at FAMU that we would possibly have something to carry over. Now, we only ran for 57 yards, and we committed 3 turnovers. We were not very good in any phase of this game, offense, defense, special teams. So for myself, and as well as others, taking in how we feel about the way Coach Maynard has performed, we got to do better. We need to do better. And this is not going to cut it, because if we're going to come out and play like this, it's going to be pretty hard to believe that we're going to do any of the things in the SWAC that would merit possibly bringing him back. And there, I've said it, and I'm going to move it on forward because we got some other things we need to cover. All right. Shout out to my boy G, those big bad Braves of Alcorn. This was also not one of their finest moments on the road as well. This is a game that McNeese, they came out, they started 21-0 right from the beginning. It was never in doubt. Never a doubt. McDowell, the transfer from Montana, he was in rare form. You can see 305 total yards, 3 touchdowns combined. Had a total solid game. The Cowboys, they avenged the loss that they had in Lorman last year, taking out Alcorn and putting a lot more seeds of doubt. And Alcorn, they go to Valley next week to start the SWAC play, and they've got a lot of questions at quarterback. So we will see as we progress. All right. So at this time, before we get into our next game, I want to bring on our first guest of the evening. And I welcome my boy, BJ Jones. What's going on, my brother? How are you?
What's up, Wayne, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, I am blessed, highly favored, man. I'm glad that you were able to get on and join us tonight, man. And it's a good time to pull up, man, because we got the game that happened last night down there in Prairie View. So you can see Southern pulled off an overtime victory, 31-24. You can see the stats here, and I'll let you kind of take over, my brother. Talk about it.
Well, the biggest thing is the first half looked like it was a carryover from a week before for Southern. But in the first half was bad football. Southern had strung together a couple of bad quarters of bad football, and that continued into the Prairie View game on yesterday. And at halftime, my phone was blowing up, man. My phone was blowing up, and there was some very angry people. But what I can say, I will always say this: people give this coaching staff, they're not afraid to give this coaching staff hell. But you got to give this coaching staff a lot of credit, because this football team came out inspired. They played with energy that even was talked about on the broadcast. When the broadcasters notice, hey, this energy that this football team is playing with is a little bit different, that's big. And the coaching staff, man, they made the adjustments, put these guys in position to win the ball game, and they went out and they did it. So shout out to the coaching staff and these kids. They didn't quit. They didn't give up. They found a way to get a win at Prairie View. And Southern continues to be unbeaten in the new stadium down at Prairie View.
That's amazing, man. And yeah, as you can see, you guys rallied from that 14-3 halftime deficit. And Cam Peters, he was trying to do his thing there. He had things working, but one thing that really took over in that second half was that defense. Southern showed up on defense in that second half. And especially in the overtime, because you get the Kendrick Rhymes going, you score on the opening possession. And then Prairie View pretty much doesn't do a thing. They didn't even get a first down in overtime. So, shout out to your defense. So what do you think was the key that translated from first half to second half in terms of your defense?
Well, one of the things that they were doing, and I was kind of baffled by, the defensive line was stunting, and the stunts that they were running were leaving the defensive tackles, giving them the responsibility of containing the edges, and that's not their strength. And then one thing that the Southern, you had the touchdown, the long touchdown, 74 yards. Those are blown coverage. And then you had missed tackles, and I think they just cleaned that up. They cleaned up, missed tackles and blowing their coverages. You can't give teams free points. And that second half, they made Prairie View earn everything, and that was the biggest difference, man. You cut down on those missed tackles, and everyone does their assignment, man. That was the difference, man. This defense is talented, but one thing that they have to learn how to do is be disciplined, play under control, and if you do that, then you will eliminate the missed tackles.
Yeah, and then I highlighted here about Jelani Davis. He had 3 tackles for loss and he had 2.5 sacks. What does this combo of him and Kelby Givens, what do you think? How does this translate for them moving forward as they get ready? I mean, obviously you still have Nichols, but then behind that, then you get back into the meat of SWAC play.
Man, I think that's a dynamic duo. And Davis, what he does is that because there's so much attention that goes over to the man that wears number 1, that frees up Jelani Davis quite a bit, and he's able, to get off a little bit. The interior of the defensive line is not as strong as one would like it to be, but one thing that I will say, as a young man that plays in the interior of the defensive line, his name is Willie Gaines. Willie gives everything that he has. I think he's like 5, maybe 5'8", about 320. He gives everything he has. Everything he has. He plays. He does not leave. Every inch of God-given ability that he has, he plays with it. And if you can get everyone playing to that level, to his level, because he's limited on what he can do from a physical standpoint. He's limited to what he has in his wheelhouse, but he gives it 1,000% every play. If you get that defensive play to his level, oh man, this defense has the opportunity to be special.
Yeah, man. And so now you guys head into a bye week. All right. And you get Nichols coming to, you guys get Nichols coming in after the bye week. So do they have any update on, because now I'm going to talk about the quarterback position. Now Noah, he was a little bit uneven, but he was better in the second half. He did what he needed to do to help you guys win. But, ZT said he went out last game against Jackson State. So after this bye week, where do you guys sit quarterback wise in your eyes?
Right now, I mean, there's Noah Biden until T-Sec can get back. Noah Biden, his decision making, it seems like he processes things a little bit slow, but you got to give him credit. Yesterday, when the team needed to come back, he did everything. He did everything the way he's supposed to do it. He didn't put the team in a position to lose the game. But I think the future of this program is AT-SAT. I think that his days, his brighter days are ahead. And I think with the the limitations that you have up front. I think a mobile quarterback gives you a little bit. That's the direction that you have to go. So um, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not sure what's the timetable on T saying he's still in the boot from what I saw last night. So that kind of lets you know that he's a way off. But I wouldn't be shocked after Nichols the T set back.
All right. And yeah, and for Prairie View, 0-2 in the league. And I know they're getting ready to play the State Fair Classic next week against Grambling. And a lot of people, they were high on Prairie View. So do you think Prairie View is you think they still have a chance to get back? I know they need a lot of help now.
No, it's over. It's done. 0-2 before we get to October. 0-2 by September the 21st, the first day of fall, you're doomed. You're asking for a lot to happen. And Prairie View, man, this is not the football team we thought they were going to be. And there were some reasons behind that. They had some injuries at the quarterback position. The offensive line is not as strong as many thought it would be. Defensively, they're not as stout as a lot of people thought they would be. So I mean, with Prairie View, it's I think a lot of people looked at that 2 SWAC championship appearances in 3 years and felt like this was an opportunity. This was Prairie View now exerting themselves as the dominant team in the SWAC West. And so far, this hasn't been that. And now the question that has been asked, and there's going to be continued to be asked when you talk about the SWAC West and the SWAC as a whole, is Grambling back? It's Grambling back. Grambling right now is on their longest stretch in their program history without a championship. No championship since 2007. 2017. It was 7 years ago. Grambling hadn't gone over 5 years and quite some time in between championships. So the questions are going to be asked is Grambling back? And, we'll see over the next coming weeks. That game last night with Grambling and Jackson State was a non-conference ball game. So, Grambling still has yet to win a conference game, but a lot of people like their chances this weekend in the State Fair Classic against Prairie View.
Yeah. Now, lastly, I'll get you out of here on this. We'll talk about this game. Now, I watched a good chunk of this ball game with Lamar and Texas Southern, and Texas Southern. This was I saw them play Prairie View, but I was really impressed by the way they played this ball game. Now, this is a game that their running game showed up, and they also played pretty good defense on Lamar. Now, Lamar, to their credit, though, they shot themselves in the foot with some very stupid penalties. They did some very mental errors. Now, Kalen Griffin, he showed up for them, running for a couple TDs. He had a winning score. Quintel Quinn is a guy that I know very well because he's from up here in Columbus. He played at St. Francis de Sales, and he went to Ohio U, and he transferred. He was pretty stout for them, running for 149 yards. The plays, though, for me, they had 2 offside penalties back-to-back when they could have gotten off the field to win this game. But even still, I'm impressed with Texas Southern did and what Chris Dishman's been doing. So I'll get you out of here on this. Where do you think Texas Southern's prospects are moving forward here in the West, man?
We'll know this weekend. I think one of the matchups that people are overlooking is that Jackson State has to take a trip to Texas Southern. And we'll kind of get a good gauge on who and what and why and where Texas Southern is. And we'll also get that look at Jackson as well. So I think that's a game when you start talking about the East and the West and who might pan out where. I think that's a good place to look. I think that Jackson State needs to bounce back. You don't want to start SWAC play 0-1. Texas Southern already has one SWAC win. They got that Labor Day Classic win over Prairie View. So, he's sitting a little pretty right now, but this Texas Southern Jackson State game coming up this weekend, it's going to tell us a lot about both of those programs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, this has been great. I know you got to run, so I'm glad that you joined. And we'll definitely get up, man, because we talk on a regular anyway. All right. So,
man, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. I'll see you later.
All right.
All right. That's BJ Jones, everybody. Now I want to bring in my next guest. He's you guys know this man very well. We'll bring in the good Doc. Hey, what's going on, Doc? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Closing out my Sunday to get ready for the rest of the week.
Yeah, man. And I know you've had a pretty loaded calendar this week, man. I know we saw you at SWAC Basketball Media Day and with the other network and everything like that. So, we always know you doing big things in the vineyard. So, but what I just wanted to just ask you tonight, man, just kind of go around the board, if you will. Like what were some of the games in the MEAC and SWAC that really caught your eye, and some of the players that caught your eye? And, just kind of go for it in your own words, if you would, for the people.
Some of the games are quite obvious in terms of what we kind of came into the weekend and saying we wanted to see some key matchups. One of them was a matchup between FCS and D2. As you've known this year, D2s hadn't had any success. They had not had a win, whether it was against the SWAC independents or the MEAC members. That's from the CIAA to the SIAC. Well, they finally got a victory, which was a comeback victory by Clark Atlanta University on a 55-yard field goal. His game expired, and this is after two 98, 99-yard drives by the quarterback from
for David Wright
University. David Wright III, in terms of what he got done. And to me, he's been the stalwart. A lot of the focus on FCS. And I said coming in this year that this is going to be pretty a wild year, that you'd see a lot of new things that you hadn't really seen throughout the SWAC and MEAC, just because for the most part you had, particularly in the SWAC, you had first, second, and at best third-year coaches. But for the most part, all of them had new quarterbacks. We saw going into the spring some transfers that came in. Coming out of the summer, you still had quarterback battles, and that told me that nobody had really grabbed it. And for the most part, you were going to have some concerns at the quarterback position. And then to add on to that is the starters that were coming into the season got hurt. You had several quarterbacks in the game one that went down with injuries. Shoulders, some of them season ending, other ones were getting into the protocol for head injuries. So that has really turned things topsy-turvy. So, but yeah, I think the big play had to be David Wright, the third, 30 of 49, 374 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have the 1 interception, but he was big in terms of what he got done. So that was one of my major moves. Obviously, you got to look at Grambling. And oddly enough, a lot of what think about it is not so much offensively, even though it looks like they put up great offensive numbers with 41 points. But 2 of those were defensive touchdowns. And you see the turnovers they gave them short field. Some of them were turnovers by Jackson State, but a lot of them they forced. And obviously you can tell they teach that. And it's worked out for their favor. But with that being said, I thought big matchup there in terms of what Grambling was able to do. And it seems like even though Miles Crowley has been slow in terms of total yardage, he has a lot of respect and command for that game. So you have to give him some credit there in terms of what he did. Dravion Hargrove is playing pretty well at the running back position. And I think those are some of the guys that I looked at in terms of SWAC. Give credit to Southern for the comeback in terms of their victory, what they were able to do. Not just big superlatives in terms of that, but it was more of a team team effort. Oddly enough, my nephew for the losing team, I thought he may have put in what would have been the game-winning touchdown to kind of get a little separation as they went up 10 at the time. Was Cavil with a 72-yarder for a touchdown where he snuck behind the defense and kind of had them broke coverage, and he was able to race to the end zone. So I wanted to give him a little love in terms of family love, if you would, talking about what he was able to do. But a little bit of struggle there for both teams. It was hard to watch. I was at that game live, and both teams end up trying to find ways to capitalize on the faults of the other team. So not aesthetically pleasing. But a lot of that again happens to be that you got quarterbacks that are youthful in terms of the number of games they played. And you're switching between quarterbacks. You got Peters, who's actually the backup quarterback because the starter for Prairie View got hurt against Southern. He's out for a couple of weeks. People don't realize that, probably not, really digging deep in Prairie View. But Prairie View at the linebacker position is hurt. Shankles was an all-conference player preseason. He's out. And so they're not as stout as you would think defensive. They were kind of weak on the back end, and not having stellar play from the linebacker position puts even more challenges on your defense. And I think what Southern does well with Bod is the fact that he throws the deep ball pretty well. So if he has a little time, he can hurt you with the deep ball because they have pretty effective receivers, and you're playing against a team who defensively on the back four, particularly in the cornerback positions, is probably weaker than most teams. So sometimes somebody's Alexa fits the other way. It goes the other way in terms of Prairie View being able to be effective at times running the ball. You have an offensive line that's still trying to gel, and they were able to do some things, counter it. But the quarterback, frankly, missed a couple of open wide receivers. Southern said that we're not going to give this quarterback a lot of time. We'll try to run blitz him and rush him, and I think it worked for the most part. They got a couple of hits, but there were 2-3 balls that he did get off and the wide receivers dropped. There were a couple of balls where he threw a little early, so underneath the players and things of that nature. So I'm not too excited about what's going on in the West. I think somebody has to win it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're a coach in this league this year, first year, second year, third year, you're really going to kick yourself if you don't come out with the conference championship. I think this is one of the weakest years. And I say that not from just teams not hungry at it, but just a lot of inexperience and a lot of injuries is capitalized. So you have a chance to run a championship. I do believe while Prairie View is a long shot, I think you're going to see a lot of teams come back to the pack. I think they may even lose against Grambling, but they still have 5 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to kind of, once the quarterback and they get the linebackers back, all of a sudden they run off some games. And I think you're going to see some of these other teams lose on the road. I can't see Southern going unscathed. I can see them losing 2 or 3. Pine Bluff losing 2 or 3. Texas Southern, it'll be interesting to see what they do against Jackson State. Can they find the things that work against Jackson State? You saw while Jackson State looked very good against Southern, you see them look pretty regular against against Grambling. But that game was still a 20-13 game at the half. And again, 2 big plays gave Grambling a lot of the momentum. It took Jackson State out of the game and what they wanted to do. They kind of had to pass more. They're more effective when they can run the ball. So I think you'd get yourself in trouble if you look week to week at scores in this league this year. You really need to look at matchups almost like you do when you think about those that follow the NFL. Some teams just match up with a scheme that they play against another team's whose defensive scheme doesn't fit what they're trying to do. So I think if you are a fan that really wants to get more indication, you need to look at what's taking place in certain matchups. Obviously, the good big game in the MEAC was the North Carolina rivalry game. And boy, oh my goodness, I watched this game and it wasn't close from the start. Took a little bit of break because I started watching some other games, namely Grambling and Jackson. and Texas Southern and Lamar because it was kind of close. And I came back and they started beating on them even more. So obviously there were some questions going into that game, whether quarterback from North Carolina Central would play in terms of Walker Harris. And boy, did he play. He was 15
Yes, he
to
did.
22, 254 yards, as you know, 3 touchdowns. But it was a total domination, offensive line. This game looks similar for those that watched the Southern and Jackson State that didn't watch this. The Eagles dominated A&T in every facet of the game. The major difference in this game compared to Jackson State is they were able to hit offensively. I mean, they had big chunk yards, big plays in terms of receptions. You had Jamari Taylor, the running back there, was 19 for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns, had a long of 66 yards. So there were big pass plays in there. You had Markel Quick, 4 receptions for 119 yards. He had a touchdown for a long of 60. So you were talking about big chunk plays in terms of what took place there. So I thought that was a big matchup and some of the guys that you want to think of. And then the Battle of HU, which our friend Brian over there at BCSN, he refuses to call Howard. He calls him Howard now in terms of Truth and Surface Classic because he said they haven't earned that H until they beat Hampton, and it's been a while. While they've been competitive the last couple of years, if you go back and start looking at this matchup, I don't even know if you want to call it a battle because Hampton has simply owned it. Now, Hampton may have their own problems in the Colonial, now renamed the Coastal Athletic Association, better known as CAA, but they don't have any problems at Hampton. And for the most part, they get their victories over HBCU major division teams or their old foes in the MEAC for the most part, even beating Grambling a couple of years ago, or just last year, I should say, actually. But in this matchup, boy, Hampton just was able to run all over the field. They had a total of 297 yards. Including Jaquan Snipes going 10 for 117, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 53 himself. So they could effectively run the ball. And when Hampton can run the ball, they're a very effective and very tough teams. They play 2 quarterbacks. Chris Zealous does not throw the ball that well, but he'll get some things done with his feet. He has 7 carries for 35 yards. He was 10 of 11. So efficiency, he was 10 of 11. He was on it. 88 yards and 1 touchdown. But you're talking about when he needed to make the play, he was a very effective in that in terms of what that looks like. So Howard tried to fight back and it made it, a game. But Hampton put up 410 total yards in that contest. They were very good in terms of that matchup. 9 of 15 on third down efficiencies. And when they went for it on fourth down one time, they got that as well. So that was kind of the difference of this game. It ultimately, I release my major division poll rankings on Sundays now. And Hampton is my number 1 ranked team coming out of that victory with a tough loss. FAMU obviously are playing off, but I play more the wins and losses. If over the course of the season, if you have more of them, you'll tend to get back to where many of us preseason thought teams were. But we look at it week to week. How did you play that week? And just because you played up and maybe played good for a half, it doesn't excite me. You need to find a way to get the victory in those games, or you're going to fall in the poll rankings. They're still in the top 7 with FAMU, basically at number 4. So a lot of good things there. Central was out last week after losing 2 straight, but as they dominated, as I said, A&T, they jumped back in the top 7. So those are some of the indications of what took place there. I would be remiss if I didn't get a shout out to Norfolk State, the Spartans, who got it done with their win over VMI. Yep. Totally surprising most of us. Many of us wanted to put not only put the hole down there, most of them threw them in the hole and wanted to put dirt on the Spartans after losing, a couple of games, including tough going to Hampton. But now we're starting to see that FAMU, Hampton were good matchups. Obviously, the close one they got with Virginia Union, but got that one done. And now we're questioning maybe a little bit of Virginia Union when you talk about on the D2 side of things, because there's two games that we got to talk about at that level as I close up here. But I wanted to give some good shout outs to Norfolk State Spartans. So it's going to be interesting because now that matchup all of a sudden in the Circle City Classic next week to kind of spring forward between North Carolina Central becomes much more interesting for both teams. So I'll have my eyes on that, what that looks like. Let me switch and give you some love on the D2 side in terms of what that looks like. The matchups I had there was my number one ranked Johnson C. Smith. A lot of folks, again, were questioning what that looks like. They had been ranked number one 2 weeks in a row. First week, people were kind of like, yeah, they doing well. I'm not sure if I believed in them. Second week in a row, they was like, okay, well, we'll see. Now they got to go play, quote unquote, the big boys. And boy, did they play Virginia Union. And they hosted them. But you had number 4 ranked in my poll rankings, mid-major, Virginia Union coming to town. And they beat them 21-16. So I think that was a huge statement, along with another team in what used to be the Southern Division. And as you know, following D2s in the CIAA, the Northern Division dominated for the last decade over the Southern Division. Well, it looks like the South, in this case, look like they want to get a little revenge. And obviously around the country, it sounds like the South is doing revisionist history. But in this case, this is not revision. They actually did it on the field. So we're going to say it counts, unlike what the other folks are saying don't know what they're doing. And that was Winston-Salem State going on the road now. They went on the road as a number 6 seed, defeating what I had for Virginia State, a number 5 seed. So this was fascinating when you think about what was going on here. And I actually had Winston-Salem, I should say, at 3. But they beat them 15-14, including a long drive where they got a set up for the game-winning field goal to defeat the Trojans in that matchup. So I wanted to give a shout-out to those teams. I already talked about Clark Atlanta kind of opening up, a team I have ranked number 2 overall, and told everybody coming into the season because of the quarterback and what I think about Coach Teddy in terms of what he's getting done, right, on the field. And hopefully for Clark Atlanta, he can be there a while. But as we kind of talked about some of those concerns at the FCS level, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts becoming high on people's list. And so they might be trying to get him out of there. So I hope, if nothing else, he has a great season. I love him to stay around there. You know, as I get into my conference business expansion, one of the teams I always talk about and told everybody is a sleeping giant, Clark Atlanta University. All these folks always want to just look at perennial brands, but you need to look at the trajectory of teams. And you got to look and see who's investing in it. One thing that you can say about the president over there at Clark Atlanta University, that was formerly at Miles, when Miles essentially had their best 10-year run, that was the president that put all the support. Both people don't realize men's and women's basketball as well as football. Well, Clark Atlanta won last year in basketball, men's side, right? Women's doing a mix. Well, guess what's happening now? They get a new coach, figuring it out. He finally got the right coach to come over there, and look what happened to Clark Atlanta. They started winning. And you think about the Atlanta market. Wait until the folks figure out that they're winning over there, what they going to do. And get not to mention Morehouse seems to even look like they might take a new step. Who would have thought that Morehouse would have more wins than Tuskegee at this time in the year? So, yeah,
no one.
Exactly. It happened. So those are things. And I also want to give a shout out to Shaw Bears, who got a big victory over Lincoln Lions. Surprising that. And the last thing I close on is just the CIAA dominance over the SIAC. They were 6-0 last week when you got Livingston beating a team over there. So everybody in the CIAA is not playing with the SIAC. SIAC has not been able to win a game.
Man, well, this was some good exhaustive material, sir. I love it. Love it as always. And, you know, I saw your rankings earlier and I checked those out. And yeah, I agree with your logic there, you know, because you had referenced, you talked about FAMU in this game right here against Troy. And, you know, yeah, they hung with them for a half and Troy, they put 13 points in the fourth quarter to kind of, salt it away. But, I agree with you. This one of the things that we have to look at is, are you winning the games? Are you winning the games? And,
Yes. Thank you. That's
so
big
are
for
you
me
winning the
because
games?
this is what I think that people don't realize. It's a weekly poll. So it's a reflection of what you did that week. It's not a projected. We did that in the preseason. We projected in the preseason, and we can come back and revisit at the end of the season where were we on the preseason. But we're talking about a week to week. So, yeah, there's some theory in terms of the matchup. Did you play up? Did you play down? What was the point spread? Were you on the road, at home, neutral site, point spread? We look at all those kind of things. But ultimately, where I'm from, and this is what I did when we do band rankings, and we'll start back up that shortly, is, it's like the band. Yeah, I love the Battle of the Bands, but where I'm from, they talk about it as HBCU marching sport. And anything that I've studied about sports, there's a winner and a loser. So you got to win. And so if you don't win, I don't believe in getting all these modicum of the trophies where everybody gets a trophy because you played well. Yeah, I'll talk about, hey, they played really effective for a half. They have some good things they did. But at the end of the day, I'm measuring, did you win or lose? And then if you win the next week, somebody else is losing, you get back up in the poll or you go higher in the poll. You might not fall out the poll, but yeah, this is an indication of how you're doing at a period of time. We like the stock market. You can bulls up, bears down. It's what's going on in the marketplace at a given time. Long range is what you want. You steady of the race. You keep your money in there. So if you got a team that you follow, whatever, if they are about their business over the long term, it'll meet out where it's supposed to be.
Agree. And so where are your travels taking you this week, sir? Where you headed
I'll say
to?
right here, I'm lucky. I have two different HBCUs with different teams coming in. So a lot of times I do not have to move around. I'll do some key games. A lot of times I would be up in Dallas for the State Fair Classic. This is around the time sometimes you see Alabama A&M. They do homecomings early. So sometimes I'll sneak over there as my wife is an alum. So I make sure that she gets back, bring my son because I want him to have all the HBCU experiences. But this week I get to stay here in my backyard because you have Jackson coming to Texas Southern University. I'm really interested in this matchup. Do we get a chance to see that Texas Southern has kind of turned the page, or are we going to see that Jackson State is who we thought they were at the beginning of the year? And they get a chance to kind of step back up. They made a statement 2 weeks ago. They fell on their face this past week, but this one counts in the conference stand. So this is one they want to get done. And you alluded earlier in talking about the Lamar and Texas Southern. They win that game. They had every chance. They went up 10-0 at half. What I thought was a good move from Texas Southern. They got down in that fourth quarter, but they scored to take the lead again. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't hold it, and Lamar scored to basically salt it away. There was a minute left, and they couldn't really get anything done on the drive, and they went down 20-17 in terms of the final score. But the fact that they were able to push back and get that lead after letting it go, I thought was a major statement on the road for Texas Southern. Now, again, in my poll rankings, I don't give you points for that. I can talk about it and say that you need to consider that in terms of the next matchup. So I'm intrigued about what it would look like. Jackson State is going to travel pretty well. Not only do they travel with their team, but they love to come to Houston and have a little bit of fun. We have quite a things to do on, and they seem to find a way to do, whether it's good eats or some nightclub. And some of them, particularly the women and even the men, they like to go to some of the clothing shops around here and get some clothes they take back and show everybody out their outfits. So Jackson State will be in the house, and it'll be intrigued to see if Texas Southern can kind of put their stamp in saying, no, we're going to be a real contender in what this looks like.
Well, Doc, man, I enjoyed this time with you this evening, and look forward to getting you not just back here on the ride again, but also we'll get you on From the Hill podcast, my other show with my group of friends. So, but yeah, enjoy the weekend, and I look forward to seeing more of the material that you always put out, the sports lab, the poll rankings, all of it. So I thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I thank you
all
too.
right.
Wayne, keep up the great work, doing a lot of good things, and enjoy what you do in terms of your discussion. Your insight is really good, and particularly it gives me more insight on Alabama A&M. And anytime I can share that with my wife, that's a good thing. So I appreciate you. As you see, we got a house united. I went to Prairie View undergrad. She went to Alabama A&M undergrad, but we both did our master's MBA at Texas Southern University.
All right. Well, hey, that's Dr. Cavil, everybody. God bless you, man. We'll definitely be talking.
All right. Look forward to it. Take care.
All right. All right. That's the good doctor. And now final segment of the night, we'll bring on my good buddy. You know him very well. He called the game last night down in Grambling. So we're gonna welcome at this time Mo Carter. How's it going, Mo?
Wayne, I'm doing well, man. I actually just got off the road not too long ago, and I know that I text you and say, yeah, I'll probably need to be in your show a little later and stuff, but it didn't dawn on me that, I have to also pick up the mini-me version as well. So, yeah, had to get him in the house, get him situated, and now I'm good, man. But definitely feeling good. Another great week of SWAC football, and being on a great call last night for, a pretty good game between the Tigers and the Tigers.
Yeah, so let's pull it up, man, and I'll let you take the wheel here. Talk about how you called it. Talk about what you saw. Analyze it, man.
So I knew for sure that for Jackson State, they would just have to do the same thing they did against Southern, and that's basically keep a pretty balanced offense and control the line of scrimmage. But Grambling said, that's not going to be the case, especially since, hey, you want to speak to Mr. Wayne real quick? Say, hey, Mr. Wayne.
Hey, Mr. Wayne.
Hey, what's going on?
All right.
Good to see you, man.
Today.
What'd you say?
Churches.
He said he had to go to church today.
Oh, man.
All right.
Good.
And he was good. All right. You want to go back and watch your video?
I want Peppa Pig.
All right. We'll get you on in just a second, okay?
Come on.
I'm going to get it. Give me a few minutes, all right?
Can I stay?
You can stay here if you want. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Wayne, man, we knew for sure that if Jackson State wanted to get a victory, they were going to have to control the line of scrimmage. But Grambling said, no, that wasn't the case. Matter of fact, Grambling came out and they made they made a statement. They made a statement early on, their first two drives, they just go straight down the field and score. And that was the best offense production we saw from the G-men. Eventually, Jackson State got things going offensively, but the thing that just shot themselves in the foot was not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 turnovers. Of those 5 turnovers, one of them was a pick six, another one was a scoop and score, and then there was a third turnover that eventually led to another touchdown, and a fourth turnover that I can say literally took a lot of momentum away from Jackson State last night when they were trying to, remain in the game. So really good game plan by Grambling State's defensive coordinator, Jason Rollins, and, for really putting some things together. And, of course, I think, T.C. Taylor, the head coach at Jackson State, I think for him, he's probably just kicking himself a little because they had a good plan. They outgained Grambling in various areas. They just couldn't execute when things were needed the most, especially when it comes to just protecting the football. Now, do I think that Jackson State is still one of the better teams in the SWAC? Absolutely. I do think that, but they definitely got some things on film they've got to work on. Their quarterback McCoy, who started the game, didn't do too bad or whatever, but then he did leave with an injury. And then Jacoby Morgan came in and, played pretty well for the most part. But yeah, now for you, Jackson State, you got to shake that off. You got to go to Texas Southern down there in Houston and, play your first SWAC game because yesterday's game was a non-conference game. And, just see how it goes from there. Grambling, they're riding high and they're really looking good. I mentioned the 5 turnovers, Wayne. They now have 15 turnovers on the entire season. That leads the nation, which is just crazy. Some schools don't even have 15 turnovers in a year. Some of them don't. So, Grambling's already done that. So I think if they keep playing like that, they're going to win a lot of what they call ugly games. But I also feel that for a quarterback like Miles Crawley, for example, he's got to find a way to just be a little bit more effective than what he was last night. Like, he was a good game manager, but just got to do a little bit more. But great game between the Tigers and the Tigers. It just happened to be the G-men that came out on top yesterday. And I may have actually lost Wayne. Okay, well, as we wait for Wayne to like come back and stroll into everything, yeah, I can tell y'all it was a great atmosphere yesterday too for Jackson State and Grambling State. I think they listed like 19,000. Probably could have had a little bit more. There's a lot of people who just stayed in the tailgate areas and eventually just, watched the game. But honestly, I just think, yesterday's game between those two kind of really showed that, hey, Gramblin's on their road to being back while Jackson State is, they had to get a little reality check. And I think now that they're getting ready to go into conference play, I think everything will be okay for the Tigers. They just have a very, very interesting slate coming up. And I think, if they go from there, then they'll be A-okay. And here's Mr. Wayne. He's back in the mix.
Lightning storm up here in Ohio, so we're back.
Okay, man. Well, I was just giving a little 2 cents on what I thought from an atmosphere standpoint yesterday too. 19,000 was the attendance. Probably could have had a little bit more. There was still a lot of people just hanging out and just watching the tailgate as well. But when I looked at both teams from yesterday, honestly, I think you could maybe see these two teams possibly meet up in December once again. I wouldn't rule it out in no way, shape, or form. But once again, there's a long season in front of us and a long season ahead, okay?
Yeah, definitely. And I know that from where we sit with Grambling, and Grambling's biggest thing is they're trying to restore their past glory. And Jackson State, they've been kind of, they feel like they're the bullies on the block, but obviously, FAMU has something else to say about that. So one thing that I would be remiss though, with you being local in Huntsville, I'll get you out of here on this one. Ask you about your thoughts about Alabama A&M last night. We didn't play very well, and we're getting ready to go down to FAMU. So what do you think? Just assess A&M, man.
So I, didn't get a chance to really watch the game, but I was monitoring everything, from the SWAC scores, and it looked like things were okay at the beginning. And then the next time I looked at it, it was like 24-3 in the first quarter. And I just don't know if things weren't clicking for the offense and the defense collectively, but whatever mistakes they made, they've got to find a way to like really, really regroup, because now conference play truly does begin for Coach Maynard and company on this upcoming week. A trip to Bragg Memorial Stadium in Tallahassee, Florida, a place that is never easy to win. And if I'm not mistaken, FAM has one of the longest winning streaks in the FCS right now. So, of course, that's not going to be an easy task in any way, shape, or form, Wayne. So, in the meantime, what they're going to have to do is, hold on, buddy. Give me 2 seconds, okay? Yeah, so what they're going to have to do is, quite frankly, they're just going to have to kind of revamp the thing and understand that SWAC play is in front of them now, and they've got to make the adjustments and the changes, because if not, it's going to be tough facing FAM one week, Jackson State the other week, and then you got homecoming, right then and there before the Magic City Classic. And I just think that they have a chance to turn things around in SWAC play. I think it's just a matter of they have to take it one game at a time and assess every single mistake they have had and possibly correct it. I mean, I do see some good things on both sides of the ball, but they've got to make some things happen, because if they don't, Wayne, it could be a very long season for Coach Maynard, his staff, and all of the followers with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, man. Well, glad that you were able to get back safely. Enjoyed the call. Real quick, what's your game this week? You got one for us this week?
Actually, I do not. I have what I would call my bye week from SWAC and ESPN Plus. So I'll definitely be grateful with that, and probably have to just do some other things, maybe around the house and do some other things collectively locally. But the following week, I'll actually be heading back down to Montgomery for Alabama State
FAMU?
against Florida A&M.
Yeah, they're
A game that
homecoming.
could eat. Yep. Alabama State's homecoming. Florida A&M says they're bringing a whole lot of people because it's one of the shortest trips they take when it comes to SWAC play. And of course, a key matchup in the SWAC East Division. We know in the last couple of years it's either been Florida A&M or Jackson State, but Eddie Robinson Jr. and company have kind of been chipping their way at the bit. And this is definitely going to be a huge game between the Rattlers and the Hornets. And from what I know right now, there's only so many tickets remaining on the away side, and then after that, I think it's just like standing room tickets for that contest at the new ASU Stadium. So looking forward to calling that one in a couple of weeks for sure, man. And then then I have another bye week, but quote unquote I say bye week from the play-by-play. It'll be back to I actually have to do my other job, with Fox 54 and cover homecoming for Alabama A&M against Bethune-Cookman that week.
Well, that's what's up, man. And again, man, I'm so thankful that you and we become pretty cool, and we talk quite regularly. And I applaud all your work, all the effort that you do locally there in Huntsville, how you cover A&M, how you cover the SWAC, how you cover HBCU sports. So, man, Mo, thank you, man, for doing this, and we definitely gonna talk some more.
Absolutely. And no, I appreciate you as well, Wayne. I mean, you and all the other folks with the podcast have definitely kept me informed for things that I may not even know about, and just kind of, be like my little extra insiders as well. Because there's been a lot of things that you guys have, bought across the threshold. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then, just add it to the show that night just to, make it happen. But now, Wayne, like on the real, whatever, definitely proud of everything that you and everybody else has been able to do. And because of this world that we live in now with media and podcasts and everything, I'm glad to see, the podcast that you guys have created not only grow, but like become a integral part of Alabama A&M athletics. And of course, you're going to get the shout outs when basketball season rolls around and this guy is doing play-by-play.
That's right. That's right, man. Shout out to you, man. So yeah, Mo, get you some rest, man. And we'll definitely be chatting.
All right. Sounds good, Wayne. Take care, man. Mom, you going to tell him bye?
Bye.
All right. See you, little man.
All right.
God
Take
bless,
care,
man. We'll see you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's Mo Carter, everybody. And a couple more things that I have for you tonight. We've already discussed a lot about our action and everything. So just going back through it one more time, everybody. So, Clark Atlanta took out Bethune-Cookman on the 55-yarder at the gun. And then Valley home opener next week. Looking forward to potentially seeing you guys do something next week. Next week on the new turf. Central Arkansas took out UAPB 56-17. Central Arkansas is a top 10 team. So, they're going to keep on rolling. UAPB, they get a bye week. Alabama A&M next. And then McNeese, they took down Alcorn. Alcorn, you got to get it together at quarterback. Now they start SWAC play next week. They hit the road to take on Valley. This game, 21-17 Lamar. This was a very good game that Texas Southern played. They had a chance at the end, but a couple of offside penalties derailed their chances. Texas Southern, they get Jackson State right there in Houston next week. The game that we talked about, Jackson State, they went down in the hole last night, committed 5 turnovers. Grambling took advantage of every one of them. Jackson State, they outgained Grambling by a lot of yards, and also they committed some penalties, a lot of self-inflicted ones. Jackson State people, fear not, though this was a non-conference game, and you'll have all your goals in front of you. So I know a lot of people have been complaining today, but all your goals are truly in front of you. You kick off SWAC play next week. Grambling, they head to Dallas to take on Prairie View in the State Fair Classic. Speaking of Prairie View went down in overtime. Big shout out to Southern. We had BJ Jones on earlier. He talked about how Southern was gritty in the second half with their defense, and they made things work to get another win down there in Prairie View. Prairie View is 0-2 in SWAC play. Southern, they get their bye week, and then Nichols comes to town. Then FAMU, they battled hard, played a good game down at Troy. Troy scored 13 points in the fourth quarter to pull it out. FAMU, SWAC opener next week. A&M comes down there to Bragg Stadium. Then the battle for the real HU, Truth and Service Classic, switching to the MEAC quickly. Hampton defeated Howard again. Hampton now gets back into CAA play, and then Howard next week, they're going to take on the Princeton Tigers. Then shout out to Norfolk. Norfolk gets a win against Virginia Military, 32-10. Jalen Daniels, 277, 3 touchdowns. Norfolk State head to Indianapolis to take on the North Carolina Central Eagles in the Circle City Classic. And speaking of those Central Eagles, they put a whooping on A&T last night in the Aggie Eagle Classic, 66-24. A&T returned the opening kickoff, 100 yards, and then that was it. All Eagles all the time in that big matchup. All right, so now, last but not least, before I give you guys the schedule for next week, these are the ride tokens. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do every week, I'm going to give ride tokens to a couple of players on offense, a key player on defense, somebody on special teams, and a team in HBCU. All right, so I give a couple of tokens here. David Wright III from Clark, Atlanta, in the big upset of Bethune-Cookman, 374 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Big road win for the Panthers. And then Quintel Quinn from up here in Columbus, in a losing effort for Texas Southern, but he kept these guys in the game, 23 carries, 149 yards. Big effort, and he's somebody that Jackson State's going to look to probably try to contain next week. On defense, I got to give it to Jelani Davis of Southern in that big comeback win in overtime. Mr. Davis had 3 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. And then, of course, on special teams, it's got to be Mr. Leonardo Cabrera from Clark, Atlanta, with his game-winning 55-yard field goal. And then my team that gets the ride token, those North Carolina Central Eagles. They were thoroughly dominant over their rival, North Carolina A&T. And then last but not least, everybody, next week, here's our schedule here in the SWAC, and then we'll also have our schedule in the MEAC. So as you can see, we've got SWAC openers for just about everybody except Prairie View and Texas Southern. That's on the schedule. Now, the 2 teams that have a bye week next week, Southern and UAPB, they get the week off. So you've got the first game at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central on HBCU Go. Bethune-Cookman back in the saddle hosting Alabama State. Alabama State, they had a bye week, so we'll see what happens with their quarterback situation as they head on down there to Daytona. Then my Bulldogs, we hit the road to take FAMU on. We have not won down there. We struggled with them down there, so we'll see what happens. 6 Eastern, 5 Central, ESPN Plus. State Fair Classic in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Prairie View coming off of a loss last night, 0-2 in the SWAC, looks to bounce back against Grambling. Grambling riding high, going in there in what is their SWAC opener. 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central there on ESPN Plus. Texas Southern gonna roll out the red carpet for Jackson State. Jackson State should be mad. They should be hungry because this is their SWAC opener. Chris Dishman's going to try to roll out something. We'll see what happens down there in H-Town, ESPN Plus. And then also the debut of the new turf and scoreboard there in Itabena. Those Delta Devils try to roll out a surprise for their in-state rival Alcorn. That'll be on the SWAC network. And then our MEAC games this week, we've got Delaware State going down there to Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, non-conference matchup on Flow Sports to take on those Campbell fighting Camels. Say that 3 times quick. Howard, they go down there and they take on the Princeton Tigers. And then the aforementioned Circle City Classic in Indianapolis with North Carolina Central taking on Norfolk State. Morgan State, the Bears, sleeper team, keep an eye on them. They head to Stony Brook to take on those Sea Wolves there on Flow Sports. And then North Carolina A&T, they step back into another old-time MEAC game that used to be a MEAC rival of theirs. They head up to Orangeburg, South Carolina to take on those South Carolina State Bulldogs in Chennisberry. All right, so we have gone around the SWAC, we've gone around the MEAC, and we also covered a little bit of SIAC and CIAA. So everybody make sure that you hit that subscribe button, like, share, do all those good things. If you're out there traveling anywhere this week or this weekend, do it safe and responsibly. I'm Wild Wayne Cartwright. I've enjoyed doing this again. We'll be back next Sunday night with another show of the ride.